When state lawmakers began forming their first committees this week of the 2026 legislative session, When state lawmakers began forming their first committees this week of the 2026 legislative session, fraud was a major topic on the agenda, given the national attention around that issue in the last several months. We talked with Republican State Senator Michael Kreun this week about a bill that he carried in the Senate last year, known as the Office of Inspector General bill. It would be a statewide office that would be able to investigate fraud independently. It passed with bipartisan support in the Senate, but has stalled in the House so far. Here's part of that conversation. Well, Senator, thank you for joining us here at the Capitol. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
This session, fraud, of course, is going to be a huge topic of discussion at the Capitol again. And for viewers at a broad level, the Inspector General bill to establish a statewide Inspector General is going to be back on the docket. Tell us what that's going to look like this year.
Well, we did our work last year in the Senate. I was a part of that bipartisan effort that passed the Senate 60-7 to establish an independent Office of Inspector General. So right now, the action on that bill is in the House. And I'm hopeful that the House will put partisan politics aside. They'll take a serious look at the Senate version that we sent over to them, and that's the version that they'll pass, or something substantially similar, and send it back, and we can get that passed into law.
So your bill would basically create a whole new office, a statewide Inspector General appointed by the governor. What would that Inspector General be able to do?
Well, the Inspector General would be very independent, and while the governor would appoint him, there is actually a legislative commission that would establish names for selection, and there would be a Senate confirmation process. And then that Inspector General would serve a 5-year term independent, and could only be removed by a vote by both the House and the Senate. So it's a very independent office working for the people of Minnesota and not just the governor. The responsibilities would be statewide, all programs, providers, recipients, and the agents itself to look for fraud, investigate fraud, and it would even have a law enforcement division to refer cases for prosecution. So a very comprehensive office to get rid of fraud here in Minnesota.
It was well documented last year with the Inspector General bill. You did something that's seems almost unthinkable in politics today. You worked with a Democratic colleague. You passed a bill easily. How did you do that? How did you build those relationships across party lines?
I don't think it was easily, because it took a lot of time and a lot of effort, and a lot of trust had to be built. But we worked all session long on that bill. We started way at the beginning. We met once a week, every Tuesday night. It was bipartisan, and it actually became bicameral because we had House Republicans and House Democrats join us in those meetings, along with staff, at every step as it went through all the committees. And I think it was just about building trust and having a common goal, making sure that it wasn't about who gets credit, whether it's an individual, whether it's a party, just trying to do the best work possible to address and solve a problem. And I think the legislature should do more of that.
In the House, of course, it failed last year, and both parties seemingly blaming each other for not getting it across the finish line. They say they're interested in doing it again, but we already saw in committee here this week that it's already stalled. Do you have any hope that the House can figure out its partisan differences?
I remain hopeful. We still have some time left here in the session. I would just think that we have a good bill in the Senate version. Now, of course, I'm willing, as all bills, to have some amendments, to tweak it, to address a few things here and there. But what we don't need, what we saw this morning, was a wholesale delete everything amendment with a brand new version of it. We were bipartisan and bicameral discussions last year that led to this good product. It's a good product that passed the Senate 67, overwhelming support. So while I'm willing to roll up my sleeves to make it better and to make it stronger, I'm not willing to go backwards. And so I hope that's what the House does when they take this bill up. Hopefully they'll take it up again and move it forward.
Fraud has become such a national conversation for many reasons, with the spotlight on Minnesota. What else this session are you going to be looking at around fraud? And is it anything you think could be bipartisan as well?
I hope that it can be bipartisan. There's going to be a number of bills. We're going to be rolling out our Senate Republican caucus fraud prevention package today. I think you'll see a lot of different bills that gets at some technology issues, some site visit issues. You're even going to see legislators address the budget with a lot of these programs, because what we saw was kind of an autopilot on a lot of these social services programs. And so we really need to get a hold of the budget, make sure that there isn't exponential growth, so you don't see things like in the Housing Stabilization Services Program with over a 4,000% increase in 4 years. That simply can't happen. So you're going to see lots of ideas across the board, and I've already started discussions with some Democrats. Hopefully some of these can become bipartisan and we get them across the finish line and passed into law.
When you look at the rest of the 2026 session, it's just been unprecedented, really, all that's happened since you were here last summer. What else is on your mind? What other types of legislation are you going to be working on this year?
Well, first and foremost, I think local. And so I represent Blaine and Ham Lake, Lexington and Columbus. I'm looking for some things that'll help my district, such as highway funding, Highway 65 and Bunker Lake Boulevard and Ham Lake. The National Sports Center also is a statewide asset that happens to be located in my district in Blaine. It's got like almost $90 million of deferred maintenance. And that's a state asset that's very important to the economy for all of Minnesotans. So I'm looking to do something on that. Property taxes are a huge issue. Affordability. We're going to have some ideas on how to kind of rein in the growth on property taxes, get those under control. And then beyond that, being a member in the minority party, I just look for opportunities to be productive. I look for opportunities where I can find a partner across the aisle, and then those become my priorities as the session goes forward so that I can be productive and do the work that my constituents expect me to do.
One of the topics that's already emerged this week has been responses to immigration enforcement. Do you foresee yourself supporting any of the Democratic initiatives around, containing ICE or placing limits on them?
Well, I'm certainly willing to look at those. And as with a lot of issues, like challenging issues like this, my position is very nuanced. I firmly believe in the rule of law. I firmly believe that immigration needs to be forced, which is primarily a federal responsibility. But how that immigration laws are enforced really does matter. And we need to make sure that we're doing that in a constitutional way and that it isn't affecting the rights of American citizens and people who are here legally. So I'm willing to look at all sorts of proposals. My high-level view is we need more cooperation, not less. I think if we have better cooperation between our federal, state, and local officials, that would help a lot in making sure that we carry out and enforce these laws in a humane and constitutional way. And and ultimately it would reduce street level enforcement. Again, this is a problem that I'm willing to be part of the solution to solve, but we need to set the politics aside. We need to tone down the rhetoric and address the problem. And if that opportunity presents itself, I'd be happy to be a part of that.
How would you describe the tone so far of the session? Obviously, the first day was very emotional for all members of all parties. What's that like, just coming back after everything that happened in June?
It's really quite surreal. And it's, from one hand, you had a great session memorializing Representative Hortman. Senator Hoffman gave a great speech on the floor. Just today in the Senate chambers, we remembered Senator Bruce Anderson. And those have all been very uplifting. On the other hand, we've already seen committees that are extremely partisan and where people are just coming in and yelling past each other. No real willingness to work to solve problems. Hopefully that'll tone down as this session goes on and the serious legislators can get to work in solving those problems. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I remain hopeful.
The last question I'll ask you about is the one everybody likes to talk about, the bonding bill. Obviously, there's hope of a bipartisan bonding bill again this year. What could that mean for Minnesotans? What should they expect?
Well, two of my priorities that I talked about earlier will require, part of the bonding bill to get those local projects in. I think our state has a lot of needs, a lot of infrastructure needs. As long as that bonding bill proposal is about nuts and bolts projects, about things that a bonding bill should be about, clean water, roads and bridges, those sorts of things that maybe aren't as exciting to the average person, but are critically important to Minnesota. If we can get a bonding bill like that on the table, I will absolutely take a serious look at it myself and see what we can do to get support for it, to get it passed.
Okay, Senator, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.